Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to do things a little bit differently today, and I think you're going to find, I hope, that moving forward with this topic, we're going to do things a little bit differently. First of all, I'm very excited to be here to talk about something that I have, it weighs on my mind a lot, acquisition. I'm really not here to focus on the past. I'm here to focus on moving us forward, and I'm looking for tangible, real milestones that we can sink our teeth into. And so what's going to be a little different about this panel is I'm going to talk a lot, but I do want to leave time and encourage folks to fill out cards with their questions. When I'm finished, I'm also going to throw some questions at the panel. But before I do that, I want to make sure you know who's on this panel. Some of you may or may not know that Robert and I thought long and hard about what to do with the component acquisition executive job or duty at NGA. And after a lot of deliberation, we decided that I would take on that role along with my deputy director duties. And my commitment to you is that you will have my focus on acquisitions moving forward. The team that I have assembled here is among the best, and they are the seniors who are responsible for the various pieces of what we're going to do moving forward with you. So I'd like to start with Tonya Pemberton, who's our Chief Information Officer, and she will have some things to say later. Nicole Pierce is our Senior Procurement Executive. Now, she has probably one of the hardest jobs. She keeps me out of trouble, and so I spend a lot of time listening and talking with Nicole, as I do with all of the panelists. Diane Hughes is our Small Business Lead at NGA. Critical role. Small business is going to be one of the things that I focus on in particular as I move this acquisition process forward. Christy Monaco. Are you the queen of GEOINT? No. Apparently. Christy Monaco is our Chief Ventures Officer, and she runs the Office of Ventures and Innovation. It's a new activity that I'm going to lean on quite heavily to help us move some things forward within the boundaries that we have imposed upon us. And last but certainly not least, Jennifer Schnarre, someone else who really needs no introduction. Jennifer, incredible officer. I've known her for well over 20 years. She is our new Associate Director for Capabilities. Interesting job for Jennifer because she comes from the mission side. And that's very important to what you're going to see and hear today because we really want to focus on linking our acquisitions to the mission and making that a little more understandable. So I'll get back to them in a little bit. Let me start with the slides. Here we go. That was the intro. So this is sort of from my optic over the years. I've actually only spent 1 year in acquisition, but I've worked in and around it for many years. And what I've noticed is that we tend to build our acquisitions around workflows. A new tail number, a new product needs to be generated, and it really has taken us to a place where we either create an existing contract to handle the whole thing from soup to nuts, we ECP an existing contract that starts to get us in trouble with respect to scope, ceiling, that kind of thing. So what we want to move, and it allows us, or it perpetuates this concept of very large, very enduring programs that in and of itself, that concept has its own problems. And so I want to start to move us away from that. I want to focus more on the mission outcomes, to have a very good understanding of what it is we're trying to achieve, attached to mission, and then I want to deliver that capability or those capabilities through smaller, more modular, potentially shorter contract vehicles that are easy to understand. They're also easier to change in and out as necessary. And so this is a sort of a graphic depiction of how we're going to do that. a concept that I've been thinking about for years. And I've been trying to get the powers that be at the time to understand this concept of aligning our investments against very large, understandable programs. And so when I took over the position, I started calling them big chunky programs. And so these are actually the big chunky programs. We are going to array all of our development dollars against these programs. And those programs will be the things that I monitor and evaluate as the CAE from an acquisition perspective, acquisition strategy perspective, a requirements perspective, and a dollars perspective. And then what I expect these professionals on the stage to do is array contracts against them that make sense. So if you are a particular type of vendor or you have a particular type of service, you know who to work with. You know which contracts that either exist or will exist to deliver capability against that construct. And this is, you'll see in a minute, this is more than PowerPoint. We are actually shifting not only our acquisition thinking, but we're also shifting our organization to accomplish some of these things. Now this is a representative sample. It's not all of them. For example, the MSAs are not up here. The MSAs are something that I have to deal with a little differently, but they exist, and they almost exist in terms of their own big chunky program themselves. But you get the idea of how we're trying to array things functionally with respect to big chunky programs. So some of the attributes of what I'm trying to accomplish here. I've been a writer of requirements, capabilities, descriptions for years. We do it way too late in the process, and that causes us to have to retool, rethink, change things after RFIs or RFPs have been released. Sometimes it causes us to have to pull them back. So we are going to work very hard to teach folks how to write capability descriptions, how to write requirements better, and we're going to do it much earlier in the process. And I'm committed to doing that, and so are these folks up here. Smaller and more modular procurements. We're going to break the work up that's contained within the big chunky programs into smaller, more manageable, more understandable pieces so that we can then take them and do procurements in a more flexible or agile way. I like shorter periods of performance, so we're going to be looking at the duration of some of these contracts and how long they're. I like shorter periods of performance, so you might start to see that. We're also going to look at alternative pathways. We do have to abide by the FAR, but there is some flexibility that exists within that itself that will allow us to go after some of these capabilities in different ways, and you're going to hear some of that from Nicole and Christy in particular. Things like OTAs, CRADAs, et cetera. Again, that leads me right into non-traditional partners. That doesn't mean we don't love our current partners, but we need to take advantage of everything that's out there and provide ways through these alternate pathways for non-traditional partners to make an impact against the GEOINT mission. So we're going to do that. More transparency. I don't know about you, but over the years have really gotten tired of some of our industry days. Some of them have been very helpful, but oftentimes it's the same, and I've been there, up on stage, talking to you about things and not giving you the information you want. So we're really going to take an active role in improving transparency. I'm already working with several industry groups. The USGIF sponsored NAWIC, for example, has suggested to me that maybe we need to do a reverse industry day. Put industry up on stage and I'll fill the auditorium with contracting, procurement, program managers, and let you tell your story about how hard it is to deal with the government, and let them ask you questions and try that. I've also had a great suggestion from one of our former NGA seniors, John Gogese, and he said, Justin, why don't you bring back NGA seniors or personnel who have moved to industry, and we'll call it if I knew then what I know now session, where they have been in my shoes and now they are out in industry, and they would volunteer to come back and talk to me about the things that they have noticed. So I'm gonna look to do that. We're gonna do we struggle with engineering. We're gonna do it earlier in the process. All I can tell you right now is I'm committed to doing that, and I'm trying to lay in the resources with Tonya and others to do that. Small business. I spent the morning over in the corner before we even opened this place, so some of them weren't even set up, talking to some of the small businesses. I am committed to doing more with small business. For the first time on this panel, that's why Diane Hughes is up here. Diane is in my office at least once, well, maybe every 2 weeks, giving me an update on how things are going. So I'm committed to taking better advantage of small business. So, integrated programs. The way to think about this is not to get too hung up on the word office. We've been very line and block in the past. One block did this thing, the other block did that thing, kind of did it soup to nuts. There was no integration necessarily. It was difficult often to get security and engineering and program management linked together. But in a reaction to the big chunky program concept, and really without any urging from me, Tonya, Jeannie, Mark came to this on their own, and they came to me and they said, Justin, this is what we want to do. We want to put someone in charge, and each of these integrated program offices will be aligned to a big chunky program, and they will be responsible from inception to retirement of the capability. And they will pull from across the organization, security, engineering. It will tie mission and product owners to the development side of the business. And I'm very excited about this, because I think this is, as I've watched NGA for years, this particular concept is one of the things that's really going to help us. So you'll hear some more about that from Tonya. So I also don't like PowerPoint promises. So I want to kind of give you a status, and I'm committed to keeping you up to speed on what we've been doing. So I mentioned that we elevated the CAE for the first time to the deputy director. Robert made that decision in December, and I'm happy to take that on and looking forward to it, as I said earlier. I've revamped the NARB. It's now called the Acquisition Capabilities Board. And we actually had our first one, very successful one, a couple of weeks ago. This is where I will sit and monitor the big chunky programs, the acquisition strategy associated with them, the requirements that we're satisfying, and the dollars that we have arrayed. I've established thresholds for the things, dollar thresholds, for the things that I will watch personally, and I've delegated certain responsibilities to Tonya and to Nicole for lower dollar values, and that's information that we can share. We launched the first agency-wide innovation experience. Christy Monaco's team did that, and everything I've heard has been extremely positive, and I've seen some of the results. So that is one of the new pathways that I talked about earlier. We hope to continue that. So that was in February. The big chunky programs, we just finalized those. It was quite an interesting experience to try to figure out what those were, and when you added them up, did that count for everything that we were investing our development dollars in? And so we've gotten there. They could change, but we've finalized them so that we can move forward with our with the integrated program offices. I mentioned the decision thresholds. We just this month finalized those, so we're ready and off and running there. We are going to do, so everything in purple sort of done. So what's coming up in May, GEOINT Services is going to have an industry day at NCW, part of that transparency piece. The IPO should be finished in May. We're going to say summer, in the summer. Because there's a lot, not only do you have to set them up, but you have to staff them. And so we have to have a little time into the summer to get those fully stood up. We're going to do the Reverse Industry Day in the fall, and we're going to have a Hard Problems Roadshow in the fall as well. So those are some things that are coming up. Now, I'm not going to brief this chart. There's 2 charts here, and you're going to get a handout. I don't know where the handouts are, but you're going to get a handout. These are tangible things that are happening in the next couple of months. It's not all inclusive. You can find this information on the ARC, and you can also apply on that unclassified side for a login to the classified ARC. And so that's going to be, this is available in its totality. This is just some highlights. It's a particular contract. It's its value. And you can see some of the other categories, who the POC is, when the RFP will come out, when it will be awarded. And so there's a handout floating around. You should pick one up. And there's the second page. Now, I wasn't going to do this again, but I learned lessons from everything I've read about Amazon. They collected data. You don't want to break the data collection stream, so we're going to do this again. And they're going to hand out the cards now. I didn't want you to get distracted, so they're going to start coming around by each row, so pay attention to me and pick up your card and fill it in later. But we do want to collect this data, and I will report out on it next year. And we will probably report out on it before next year, but we're going to strive to do better as we try to do each year. Now, before I get to the team, I'm going to do an audible. I'm going to break from the acquisition thing for a minute, and I'm going to give everyone an update on broker. I think I've been to over 25 booths, visiting with vendors in the last couple of days. I have a few more to go. People are confused a little bit about broker, and I want to make sure that I'm getting a consistent message out. I'm going to take about 90 seconds to do that, and then we're going to get to the team. Well, 90 seconds, you never know. I talk a lot. So broker is not a thing. You're not going to see an RFP that comes out that is for broker. Broker is an operational construct. It's an operational construct that was developed as I rolled into the director of source job. We were trying to figure out what we wanted to do in certain areas of our business. And the construct of a broker presented itself. We matured it. It's an operational, there's an ConOps with it, and I'm going to describe it to you. It has 4 pieces. The first piece is issue management. This is the piece that takes the traditional requirement set that comes from a customer and uses customer relationship management techniques to ferret out what are the issues this customer is trying to solve. And it breaks them down into needs. And those needs become to a level where they're discrete enough to turn into a market order. And a market order goes into the second piece of broker, which is broker services, which matches that market order to a phenomenology. And a phenomenology needs to be in the stable of suppliers that NGA has arrayed to satisfy its customer needs. That's hard. That part is hard. Bayesian math, lots of automation involved in broker services. I haven't seen too much of that on the floor. The third part of broker is supplier interaction. Supplier interaction is taking that phenomenology, linking it to a supplier who is a proven supplier based on value chain analysis of that supplier. Think of it as the 4-star rating. Their responsiveness, their quality, etc. Once that occurs, the fourth piece of broker is invoked, and that's content conveyance. Now, I see a lot of content conveyance out there. That's really just taking supply and providing it somehow. What I've seen on the floor is through GUIs or UIs to a customer. To me, while I spent a lot of time in my last couple years of my career doing that stuff, it's not the hardest part of broker. So those are the 4 pieces of broker. Broker is our future for interfacing with all of our suppliers, including the NRO. So broker is what is going to link to Betty Sapp's future ground architecture. And so you need to be thinking about it in terms of that kind of scope. And what I've told a lot of vendors around the last couple of days is don't think you have to solve it all. Partner, solve parts of it. And I think you'll be more successful. I've had a lot of people pitch to me that this thing, here's our GEOINT broker, Justin. Behold. It's not, I haven't seen it yet. So keep that in mind. So what's going to happen is Source spent about a year developing a ConOps and doing some lean startup activities to develop MVPs around broker. They developed some codes, had some operational pilots. We took all that information and packaged it up in something called a development execution plan. We gave it to Tonya's team at the beginning of 18, and now they're taking that and doing design engineering work against it to do what I call mapping and gapping against existing capabilities. Does it map? Do I need to tweak that existing capability? Is there a gap? Do I need to release an RFP to fill that gap? Can I use something Christy's doing? So that work is ongoing right now. I'd love to stand here right now and tell you when the first part of broker is released as an RFP. I can't. And I don't think Tonya can either. She's got some work to do, but it's coming. So that's broker. If you're still confused, tall guy back there, Scott Curry, be happy to answer your questions. He's waving. I'm always available. Broker is important. Broker sets the foundation for everything Robert talked about in his speech. We have got to get broker in place to allow some of those things to happen. So I look forward to working with you on that. So I'm going to start with the team. I'm going to ask each of them a question to get us kind of rolling, and then I'll field some of the ones that you have. So I'm going to start with Tonya. So Tonya, I talked about the IPOs. I really appreciate you, Mark, and Jeannie stepping up to do that. How are they coming along, and how do you see them helping you do what you need to do?
Great. Thank you, Justin. So I wanted to start, I'm going to back up a little bit before I talk specifically about the IPOs. I joined the NGA team a little over a year and a half ago. And I wanted to start by just giving you a few perspectives coming in, I'll say from the outside, that I think are really important in some of what Justin was talking about and some of the directions that we're going in. The first thing that I wanted to note in terms of perspectives is that we at NGA on the government side have a very, very capable team. But I think what's happened over a number of years for a number of reasons is that we went to a very, very outsourced model, and we actually got away from the kind of ownership that we need as an organization over our technical baseline and architecture. So we have spent a lot of time over the last year really thinking through that, really thinking through what do we need to do differently, what kind of skills do we need to, I'll say, resurrect in the workforce that we already have, as well as bringing in some new skills to really put us into a position where I'll say we're a better partner for industry in endeavoring to deliver for the mission. Now, the second perspective that I'll share is that in being a highly outsourced organization, what that really led to were some barriers, some walls that we had, where you had development that was very separate from mission. We thought we were very integrated with mission. We would have long requirements documents every time we went into whatever, I'll say, acquisition we were setting off to do. But the real linkage to mission was not necessarily there. So we had lost our way a bit on how to do development in a way that we were really addressing the true mission needs that we had in a timely fashion. Not that we weren't doing Agile, we're doing Agile all over the place, but just the operating model that we had internal to the government was not, I think, serving the mission the way that we needed to. The third thing that I would point out is that on the acquisition front, and we have an organization full of what's termed acquisition professionals, we probably became more focused and enamored with the acquisition process as opposed to the substance of what we needed to acquire. So we're also spending a good amount of time really looking at how we do acquisition, how we do RFPs, how we can really convey to industry the what we're trying to do as opposed to simply the process of acquisition and doing that quite well. The fourth thing that I would point out, and this is one that I hope as we get to the chunky programs, as Justin has alluded to, that it helps a bit, but we have a very, very complex structure that's developed over the years in terms of our programmatic and budgetary, I'll say, framework that we operate within. So all of this, we've spent the last year probably not talking to industry as much as we would like. In fact, the last few days have been really great in terms of being able to engage with industry on some of these thoughts. But we had a lot of homework to do internal to NGA to really put us on the right path, which brings me to IPOs, Integrated Program Offices. So integrated program offices, nothing new for those of you that I'll say come from the technical side. It's the idea of a highly matrixed construct where you bring together technical, mission, I'm going to say contractual. You bring together a lot of the business side with budget and finance. You even bring in security. You bring in what's going on the research side, and you form significant program offices that are working to actually develop the kind of capabilities that we need going forward into the future here. And if you look at the chunky programs that we've come up with, at least 4 of those are going to result in integrated program offices. Now, integrated program offices will be housed in CIOT, and clearly CIOT will have a significant role in what we do there. However, integrated program offices are not owned by CIOT, which is my portion of the organization. These are NGA program offices. They're owned by all of NGA. We will have people matrixed in from all parts of the organization working together in a way that we can actually be quite agile in how quickly we turn solutions. It leads to a more modular way of us wanting to, I'll say, interact with industry. You'll see us for each of the capabilities that we want to develop. We're going to make choices. We're going to have different models. Sometimes we may use developers that we have in-house. Sometimes we may say, gee, that's a capability that we want to partner with industry, and we want to use our DevOps environment to actually develop whatever that capability is. And then for some of the larger capabilities, we clearly are going to need to outsource some of those in a bigger way. Hopefully, you'll find that we're a lot clearer in the what it is that we need as we outsource for those things. Now, not everything fits an IPO construct. Much of what we're doing on the infrastructure side will likely not fit an IPO, but there will be much integration between the infrastructure side, what we're doing in IPOs, and what we're doing in some of the other areas like GEOINT services or our web services area. So we're really, really excited about the stand-up. Now, Justin was asking how they're coming along and when they'll be stood up. I will say this is something that involves stakeholders across NGA. We've been very engaged at the leadership level in getting these set up. Right now, my prediction is that we're going to be really getting these, I'll say, IOC'd in the early summer. So that's what we're shooting for. And again, it's going to be something that's done at the NGA level as opposed to just within CIOT. For industry, we're hoping that it gives you a much better and clearer vision of the capabilities that we need. We're hoping that the contracting that goes on is a lot clearer for all of you. There will be greater business opportunity in the way that we are breaking things up. And I think that you're going to find, I hope that what you find is that the government actually steps up to be a worthy partner, which you all deserve. So that in a nutshell is IPOs.
Thanks, Tonya. So Nicole, who's our senior procurement executive, everyone up here has a hard job. Let me just say that to begin with. But I really feel for Nicole sometimes. She comes in my office all the time, and she has a duty to keep me up to speed with everything that's going on with contracting. And I have a tendency to like to push the envelope a little, and Nicole does a good job of keeping me honest, keeping me in check. But she is very forward-leaning, and so I've asked her to look at a lot of the flexibilities that exist within our structure that we can use to think about the things that Christy is doing. So what I wanted to ask Nicole was, how does she see some of the areas that we're pushing with respect to flexibility manifesting themselves in the contracting work that she and her team do to try to sort of streamline and improve our delivery to mission?
I have a couple of examples to offer. Recently, you should have seen our X as a Service RFI that went out. We learned a lot. We got 20 some odd white papers that resulted in our review to kind of figure out what we might do with it. And an RFP was released recently. It's a solicitation that's out there now, and it involves the military installations in North Korea, and we don't have the solution identified. We're looking for the solution, right? So it's a requirement. We need to know more about general military facilities, and over to you guys, right? We issued a broad area announcement called The Big, received many, many white papers, and we're working our way through the subjects one area at a time, and we've made some awards against that. So those are, I'll call the non-traditional decide a need, publish our need, get the responses in, do a source selection, make an award. Those are two examples where we really didn't have the solution in mind. We had the problem in mind. We did award OTA consortium contract last July. It's been a little slow in getting our needs published on that, but we've made one award, and we have 3 pending, and there'll be more to come on that. So there's the consortium contract. Feedback is a gift, and when we issue RFIs and we're not maybe demonstrating our intentions that we've laid out here today through the RFI process, our market research, market understanding process, give us that feedback. Be explicit in your feedback. We will react and respond. Speaking of feedback, the report cards that just were handed out, they're near and dear to me. I've been on the panel for the last 4 years, and I am anxious to see the grades that you all would like to offer. Timeliness of our acquisition activity tends to continue to be the thing that's most on your mind, and what I heard on the floor. And as Tonya said, there's reasons that in some cases we've taken some time and had some pauses. I suspect that that time is coming to an end, that you will start to see a lot more business opportunities. We do use the NAC. On the report card that got handed out, on the back, there's the website listing for how you can fill out that report card on the ARC so that we get it in electronic form. And that is the space that you should be following. It's unclassified. You can register. You have to have a DUNS number. So for those of you that don't have a DUNS number, let me know and I'll help you figure out how to get one. But that's where we will advertise. And as Tonya was chatting, I was thinking that perhaps the IPOs could have a site that they could just keep you up to date on what's happening within their structure and have it. NRO has partnered with us, and they are creating a capability to push notifications to you which is also going to be a new opportunity where you won't have to go and sign on every day and figure it out, that you can actually get a push. So be looking for that. But do understand that we do respond to your feedback. I will listen to you. You can call me up. If we've made a mistake, we'll acknowledge it. I chatted with a few folks on the floor. This year we've had a few missteps, protests that received, and I quickly tell Justin, yep, there's a problem here. We need to take corrective action. Or no, I'm feeling very confident in what we did, and we will defend it to the end. But your feedback helps me make those judgment calls. So again, traditional contracting is never going to end. We will continue to use the FAR. We will use all of the flexibilities that come from the panels, the 809 panel that's meeting, the defense reforms that are pending. And OD&I, as Sue Gordon said, she's interested in trying to get to some agility and some reform in the acquisition space. So we'll be following whatever flexibilities that we're offered. We'll continue to use them as we can.
Thanks, Nicole. One of the things that led me to the big chunky program construct was I tend to think architecturally, and I see things in pieces, and then I decompose them into smaller pieces and then even smaller pieces, and I look for ways to solve them. I've always, for many reasons, been compelled by what small business brings to the table. I see their ability to fill a niche or to fill a unique capability that they bring to the table, so I want to have those increased opportunities. It's good for the industry, it's good for government, and so I'm a fan, and so that's why Diane's here. So I wanted to ask Diane what she thought about how the big chunky program construct will help her in her deliberations with the small businesses that she deals with.
Thank you, Justin. I think there are a lot of ways that moving to big chunky programs are going to help increase small business opportunities within NGA. And Tonya talked about it a little bit. When we look at the requirements holistically, and we have an IPO structure to manage how we go and acquire those capabilities, and it's connected to the mission, that's going to give us, our program managers, a lot more flexibility in how they pursue those capabilities. And that flexibility is going to allow them to select from a number of ways that we can acquire, either through traditional contracting or to pull in a research project and do technology insertion, or an innovation project to go after a hard problem that they're dealing with. And those multiple avenues to pursue new capabilities are, and that flexibility that comes with that, I think, are going to be a great way for small businesses to showcase to us their unique capabilities. I think our increased transparency, we talked about some industry outreach that we're going to do in the fall, a road show and an industry day. Those are going to help us communicate with industry and with the small business community in particular that sometimes have difficulty coming into the building and hearing from us on a day-to-day basis what it is we're struggling with. So I think that too will help increase small business opportunity in NGA. So I'm really excited about this new construct.
Great. Thanks, Diane. So when I first met Christy, I knew she was going to end up in a job like this. It's just tailor-made for her. Innovative ways of doing things, thinking differently, doing things differently. So what I want to ask Christy is, one of the things she's brought to us that we're excited about is she's loading up this innovation pipeline. And I'm interested in seeing how she thinks and how it's going with respect to loading that innovation pipeline up in ways that help us get capabilities into the enterprise quicker so that we can take advantage of some of the great stuff that we're seeing.
So thanks, Justin. The innovation pipeline that Justin just referred to is essentially a lean startup process that many corporations and startups have begun to employ. Where we have traditionally kind of fallen short is that we kind of start in the middle of that process with, let's do a pilot. And we wind up with a lot of what I call solutions in need of a problem. And so by adopting the lean startup model, what we're doing is pushing some effort, and it doesn't take a huge amount of time or effort to do better problem curation, for us to get out and talk to our customers and take a look at kind of what's going on in the technical terrain and determine what's the real problem we're trying to solve, what exists that might fit our need, and then move forward. So rather than just sort of somebody bringing in kind of a shiny object and saying, hey, this is cool, let's try it, let's make sure that the solutions that we're bringing in really meet a need. To me, the key to crossing what we in the innovation community refer to as the valley of death, that period between sort of your pilot and your adoption and integration, the key to that is making sure that you're fulfilling your customer's requirement and that you're doing so in an exquisite fashion. So that's one of the things that we're doing in the Office of Ventures and Innovation is laying out this pipeline, taking it to the workforce and saying, hey, you're part of this. This isn't just something for our program managers to be familiar with. This is something for the folks who are what we call our problem owners, our analysts, our source strategists, the people who have challenges that they are trying to address, getting them involved. So that's why the integrated program offices are such a great thing to be happening at the same time, because that's the construct to bring these integrated teams together to start working things through the pipeline.
Great. So thanks, Christy. And my last question will be for Jennifer. I'm going to start moving this way. So Jennifer's the one Robert and I have asked to sort of bring a lot of this together from a capabilities perspective. We have high confidence in Jennifer. But you've heard a lot of things that are going to impact or help or have an influence on the things we've asked you to do. So how do you think things are going to happen moving forward for you and your new assignment?
Thanks, Justin. So I'll start actually exactly where you did earlier, Justin. The fact that our acquisition approach has to be more responsive to mission needs. And I don't think anyone, no matter where you sit in the spectrum, either within the agency or our mission partners or industry partners or anywhere along that range, can argue with that concept. So as Justin said, I have over 30 years on the mission side. So I've been almost on all sides of the needs development, whether it's new ideas, whether it's maintaining existing things that our customers depend on, or whether it's really pushing the edges of innovation, as Christy has talked about. We have to be able to create the demand signal, but also all of us, you've heard a lot about it today, have to build the environment for those needs to be responded to. So you've heard from everyone up here, that's exactly what we're doing. We've been spending a couple of years working on this, to building the process, setting the conditions for this to take hold. Tonya talked about the integrated program offices. We're building transparency across all of our processes, whether it's going line by line in our budget to understand exactly which programs are supporting the direction that we're going in, whether it's building a better understanding across the agency from the analysis and source directorates, the users, the demand signal there, to how we're operating across the capabilities portfolio to make sure that there's transparency that, as a couple of us up here have said, will better serve you and help us be better partners for you. Hopefully, if you've seen in the last couple of days the number of NGA people here, you've seen people from teammates from our analysis directorate, our source directorate, all parts of the agency who are really anxious to learn more so that they can create the demand signal within the agency and then also back to you. So I think a lot of things are taking hold, whether it's bringing in innovation like Christy described, whether it's things that are developed within the agency and building a process that those can then transition. The process that Tonya's and her team are building will be able to have more clarity, more transparency, and really what we're all working toward is a more unified effort so that we can get the outcomes that we need.
Thanks, Jennifer. So now I've got a ton of questions from all of you. So I'm going to do my best. I can tell you that as I ferret these questions out to you, a bunch of them are about communication. So if in your answers to specific questions, if you could think about that. But one, it looks like it probably for Christy to keep the theme moving. How can industry offer innovations to improve efficiency and promote cost savings when what we see in a lot of the solicitations does not really look to evaluate how innovative an offerer is? And Nicole might be able to join you on that one.
So I'm actually going to hand it to Nicole, because that to me sounds more like an RFP kind of a question. I will say, before I hand it to her, that we do have many different ways of on-ramping, bringing your ideas to us. We've got the commercial GEOINT activity. We've got Rick Meilenbeck, who is our industry innovation advocate. We've got the outposts. We have tentacles out in industry for you to interact with us, and so hopefully you're taking advantage of that presence.
So while a good amount of that comes out in the RFP, we can't do it without the technical baseline and the roadmap that we're going after being understood, and that's where we've had some shortfalls. So some of our RFPs follow the sort of traditional by level of effort because we can't really describe what we need. There's been a few successes. One that I mentioned, when we don't know the solution space, but we just go out and we ask for the idea, that's where innovation is obvious, right? On the more traditional RFPs, if we send out an RFI and it seems to not be allowing you all to showcase what your capabilities might be, and you're worried about how you might compete without also maybe giving out your secret sauce and your questioning, ask for a one-on-one. We do those. We just had them on the transport to RFP process that we're going under now. We will host one-on-ones, and that's where you can have more candid conversations. I was speaking with one of our prime contractors today about FMV. This is an area where we've been buying it level of effort for quite a bit. And Sue Calwait leadership and my leadership team got together and said, let's try something different. And it was slow to get out the door, but we did oral presentations, and we're moving it towards performance-based activity by my team out west. And we made the award in a pretty short time once the RFP went out, because we used a very streamlined RFP process with the oral proposals. And that was moving to performance-based and allowing for the companies to showcase some of the innovations they might bring to the table to drop the cost of doing that business area. So there's some successes in that area, but we can do more.
Thanks, Nicole. I want to take the next one, but I also want to remind everyone that we'll never get through them all. So we are going to answer them all and post the answers online. We do that every year, and so we will take that on. So if your question doesn't get answered, we'll have something for you with respect to an answer. So this one's for me. Have you met with industry to ask them how acquisition could be improved? And they also asked if we could tweet out the chart that we just passed around. So I'll look into that with OCC. But as far as interacting with industry, I know it's a cliche, but I have an open door, and a lot of people come and talk to me. And one of the things that I ask them either at first contact or the next meeting is bring me a list. Bring me a list of things that you think we should do to improve acquisitions. And I get those lists. Some of them even put them in charts and just hand them to me, and I collect them. As I mentioned earlier, I'm looking for any kind of industry outreach working group mechanism that I can. USGIF came to me with this thing called the NAWIG, the NGA Acquisition Working Group, where the members of USGIF who are industry based take their company hats off. They sit with me and all of these folks, and we talk about these things. This is where we came up with Reverse Industry Day. This is where we came up with some of the hard problems activities that we're going to do. And it's not just meeting with me. I meet with them quarterly. They do working groups below that one, where they go off and tackle these things and bring things back to me in this NAWIG board. So I am always open and willing to meet with industry. I invite you to send me your concerns. The NAWIG had a session on Monday at 1 o'clock. I attended because I told the NAWIG that I would go because I wanted to hear what they had to say. And this was mostly industry talking to industry. And without asking them, Every one of these people, except for Jennifer, because she had another commitment, showed up on their own, of their own volition, to participate in that discussion. I'll be honest with you, I got a little annoyed halfway through the thing, and I spoke up and I said, look, we're just bickering. I think there are 10 or 12 things that you do wrong as industry, and I bet you have a list of things that you think I do wrong. Let's stop talking about nibbling around the edges on this stuff and just write them down, and we'll look at each other across the table and we'll address them together. And so the team gravitated to that, and they're going to take that on. And that was beyond the NAWG. Anyone could have shown up at that. So I'm wide open to feedback and encourage you to do so. I'm going to throw this one out to the entire panel because it is a theme that I worry about. I'm going to read it verbatim. It says, in many ways, NGA is leading the way across the IC in your pursuit of optimizing how acquisition aligns with mission. However, the ideas communicated by all of you on stage don't always reflect the behavior of the rest of the organization, who are not as progressive. What are you doing to implement your acquisition improvements? So why don't I start with Tonya?
Okay, I'll start. So interesting statement and I think question. First thing that I would say, and I've served in many different places across the intelligence community, I would start by saying NGA really is pushing the envelope in a lot of ways in terms of the innovation, I'll say the risk posture that we're willing to take on more so than many other entities out there, which is a good thing. Related to acquisition itself, while I think that there's a lot of, I'll say, plans that we're putting in place and have talked about, all of these plans require what I would call significant cultural shifts in terms of how we NGA pursue acquisition, pursue the business that's at hand. So, that's not going to happen in a week. It's not going to happen in a month. We hope that you're starting to see some of the changes that we're making, but it's going to be a long road. There's going to be patience that's going to be required. Trying to, take what I would call acquisition professionals and start talking about things like, as I say, putting the T back into CIOT, which is my part of the organization. That does not happen overnight. That requires a lot of change in mindset, a lot of, I think, training in some cases, resurrecting of skills that maybe have atrophied over the years. I think that hopefully what you see in front of you is a leadership team up here that's very committed to what we're talking about. And I will tell you, the leadership team under us is incredibly committed to this. So NGA definitely has the will to move in the direction that we're talking about. And I think that we have the team in place at this point that we can do this, but it's not going to happen overnight.
I'll just go really quickly. For me, it's tradecraft. I have a population of contracting officers that over time, there's been a lot of attrition. And when you look at the data, the exiting COs have 10 plus years of experience. The incoming COs have less than 3, less than 6. So part of it is just focus on tradecraft development and connectivity to the mission, helping them understand that the paperwork they're pushing has a real meaning at the end, and that's what I focus on.
So from where I sit, organizational change is really difficult, and this is a big change. And from my vantage point as a small business director working with the acquisition teams directly on a day-to-day basis on the procurements that they're working on, we have to continue to talk about where we want to go. We have to continue to advocate for this change. And we have to support each other. So that means small business supporting program managers and contracts and engineering and all of us on the acquisition team working together for the mission outcome.
So we have drafted, and everybody on this panel weighed in on, a brand new NGA Innovation and Acquisition Strategic Plan. This is going to be published alongside the new NGA strategy. And part of that plan includes an innovation mandate that basically says, look, in order for us to continue to be effective in delivering mission outcomes to our customers, we can't just solve today's problems. We also have to continually refresh our capabilities in order to outpace our adversaries' capabilities today and in the future. So putting that out there and saying, look, it's up to all of us in the NGA workforce to be able to step aside from our day-to-day and take the time to think about what is the thing that I need to do in order to refresh my capability. Second thing I want to point out is that this isn't just an acquisition problem. Our ops side are tremendous partners in this. We could not ask for better support from General UV and Kim Fight and Sue Calwait and the folks on the ops side who get this and are pushing their workforces in the same direction.
So Justin asked us to keep in mind communication as we started this portion of the session. So it's too easy to say this is about communication because it's a lot more than that, but that's one of the very foundations of this. We're all communicating, but then to make sure that as we spread out across the agency and our workforces that they are as well. So when I started a couple of months ago, made sure that we are in line here with addition to our resource directorate as well as our strategies office, and we have weekly meetings to make sure we're all on the same page. The next step of that is our career services, who are bringing up all of our people to make sure that they understand these behaviors and they're instantiating it out in evaluations and training, the development of our people, whether it's new hires or our existing workforce. So the mix is to get all of these things working at the same time. We're making good progress in that area and are committed to continuing to hold each other accountable, as well as getting the feedback that we need to make sure that we're doing what we're saying we're doing and intending to do.
Thanks, team. So mindful of people's time. I know people have planes to catch. I see people peeling off to go to other appointments. I will commit to answer every question that's submitted. So if you still have cards that you're writing on, give them to us, and we will post the results. There's lots of questions up here about, Justin, will you post that? Will you tweet this? Will you send me that? Everything I've talked about, we will make available online. There are a lot of questions about communications. How will you communicate? How can we talk to you post RFP, pre-RFP? Proof's in the pudding. One of my father's favorite lines. If you give me some time and trust this team, we will do better to communicate with you. I commit to that. So I appreciate everyone coming. I enjoyed it, and I thank all of these fine officers up here with me who are going to do all the hard work. So thanks, and enjoy the rest of the symposium, and travel safe wherever you're headed.